Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Authors on Mission podcast, where the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary, just like in today's featured novel. I'm your host, Danielle Hutchinson, Chief Creative Officer here at Authors on Mission, and today we're venturing beyond the veil of our world and into the realm where ancient mythology meets modern heroism. So, imagine a universe where 4 horsemen of the apocalypse aren't harbingers of doom, but humanity's guardians, where a German shepherd might be more than just a loyal companion, and where the person you once loved returns as death incarnate. Here's the world created by our guest today, J.F. Monroe, author of the legendary Guardians, the first installment of the Legacy of 4 trilogy. J.F. is not only creating wonderful fantasy worlds on the page, but she's also navigating the real-world adventure of full-time work, motherhood, and her creative career. Through her writing, she explores how the most extraordinary circumstances reveal our most human qualities: love, courage, and redemption. So grab a coffee or some water, settle in, and enjoy as we chat all about this book and the writing process here with J.F. Monroe. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Danielle. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to have this chat.
Yeah, me too. I think this is a really fun discussion. I'm very interested in your book, and I think that our audience is going to learn a ton today. So before we dive into the book, I always like to talk a little bit about yourself so we get a good idea of who you are. You are a full-time mom, you're working on your career, and you're still balancing writing. So can you tell me a little bit about what that's like? And I guess also what led you into the writing world too. I'm sure something must have been inspiring that had you open up that Word document and begin writing on that page. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, just how I balance a full-time job and being a mom and pursuing this writing career, it's definitely made me more intentional with my time and my imagination, right? So I don't get these long, luxurious writing days. I get stolen nights, mostly when the kid is in bed. And that gives me a few really concentrated couple of hours to just go as much as I can. But there is beauty in that limited time that you're given. It forces clarity. So it's honestly, it's helped me a lot. And then just being a mom has deepened, my understanding of the stakes within the stories that I tell, right? So you don't have to be a mom to understand what it means to protect someone, to fight for people you love. But for me, at least, it just completely enhanced everything. So that's how I balance it. I don't know if you could call it balance, but I do my best. And then what made me start this writing journey was I've always been really fascinated with, I love writing in anything, really. I got my degree in creative writing from Hunter College. Up here in New York. And so it's just been something. I'm not the greatest speaker in the world, but when you give me pen and paper or you give me that laptop, that's how my words tend to flow, as you'll see throughout this podcast when I'm stumbling over my words and ranting. But what made me actually decide to write a novel was I was speaking with a friend, and what you should know about me is I tend to just do things on impulse. And so I always have this conversation with her about I write blogs and I write fan fiction and I, dabble with, some things here and there for me, I write for me. And she's like, you have all of these really wonderful stories. Why don't you just do what you've always wanted to do, which was to make one of them a book? And so I don't know if it was just the timing of it, but something she said just clicked for me. And I was like, yes, I'm going to do this. And so I did. I, in fact, opened up a Word document and just started typing. And it became what I thought was going to be one book became this entire trilogy. So.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. First off, I think the favorite My favorite thing that you said right there was one, that when you start to write, you're thinking about what it's like to be a mother, and because you're protecting people around you, and that's kind of what your heroes do. So I think that's really cool that you're embodying your own experiences within your characters. And I guess the second thing I could say upon that is you heard me stumble just then. So believe me, even if we aren't the best speakers, we find other ways to get our message across, such as the written word. So we're all human. But it's great that you've been able to pursue this and that you're so inspired to get it down on the paper. I think it's a really cool concept too. I mean, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, but they're not villains, they're the heroes. So I think that's a really cool twist. I'm wondering, did you come up with that, just yourself, or was there something that inspired you?
So I can tell you exactly how this came to be, only because it feels like yesterday that it happened. And book one was like 5 or 6 years in the making. And it started with, I'm just going to be completely transparent here. It started with an episode of Supernatural.
Okay.
When I was sitting down, I was watching it. Honestly, I think I was watching it with my mom. And it was my first introduction to like the four horsemen. And I was like, that's a really cool concept. And they were in human vessels as well in that episode. And I was like, I don't know a lot about this lore. I was a classics minor in college, so I love like mythology, Greek mythology, like anything you throw at me mythology wise, I love. But biblical lore, I wasn't too familiar with. And so what I did was I went online, I looked it up, I learned about them, and I learned that in the book of Revelation, there's like 3 lines on on these individuals, on these entities, basically introducing them and then them writing what their purpose was. And I thought that was just incredibly, incredibly fascinating. And so I took those 3 lines, one in particular, which kind of set off the entirety of the trilogy. And I just was like, well, all these questions came to me. So I've always been fascinated by like this duality, the nature of duality, and like how light and dark often exist in the same space. And I love flipping that on its head. So I'm like, all right, in the book of Revelation, they're here and they're harbingers of doom, right? Just for lack of a better term. What if these traditionally feared figures were now these guardians of humanity? What if their power, which was immense and unstoppable, came at like this cost, right? That their role wasn't destruction, but it was about keeping balance. And I was just completely attacked by all of these questions. And it just started to build and build and build until I started to explore them. And then I started to answer them on my own. So.
Got it. Well, first off, love Supernatural also. Some of us, I'm sure, watch it only for Dean and Sam, but it's always really cool to see the interesting elements of the world they bring into it. And it's nothing wrong with finding something that inspires you and running with it, which is exactly what you did. And you learned from it too. You did your due research and expanded until you've created this whole new world within your books, which is really cool and something that every author should aspire to do. So that's wonderful. And so, as you were writing, I was looking through your materials. You kind of described your writing process as being cinematic, which I guess now it makes sense since you based off Supernatural as if you were watching the show yourself as you were writing the book yourself. So I'm wondering, what was that like for you? That must have been a really cool storytelling technique as you went about it.
Oh, yes. It is really cool when you do it right. And I had pros and cons when doing this. So yes, it's just in the short answer to your question is absolutely. Like I have things play out in my head all the time. So I before I write anything, I kind of try to like watch it in my brain as a movie. And then I'm like, okay, what is the characters feeling right now? What are they noticing? How are they feeling? And then I try to capture the impact of that moment and then layer in setting and action and all of like the details surrounding it. Because me, a struggle is details in a book. I like to get to it. Like if you're looking for slow burn romance, that's not me. I'm like straight and to the point. So, and I do that with my details too and my world building. So I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but when I say cinematic, I am literally living the scene in my head to see if it works. And so sometimes like music will help because it'll set like an emotional tone, but I'll even only bring the music in after. Like the scene itself really has to play out. And then when I get the words on the page, I have to revise like crazy just to make sure like pacing and visuals are serving the story, and not just playing out really prettily in my head. And so the cons to this are that, and I find myself doing when I'm, and this is why revising is so important, I find myself doing a little bit more telling than showing, right? Because when I write things, it's almost like it's a screenplay mindset of like, all right, well, this person's over here. And don't forget to talk about like this over here, what's happening. This is a book at the end of the day. It's not a screenplay. And so I have to like constantly remind myself, all right, less telling. It made sense when you showed what the character did over here. You don't have to then tell the, the audience, the readers,
Right.
What they're doing or why they're doing it. Let it sit with the people reading your book are very intelligent. Let it sit with them and they are able to pick up what's exactly going on. So it's a wonderful thing and I love doing it, but you just got to make sure you handle the pros with the cons with that.
Yeah, well, I definitely agree with the show not tell aspect. As an editor and ghostwriter myself, I know the importance of doing that. So many people come to me with manuscripts and they literally say this person is the bad guy, but maybe not exactly that sense. But you have to build your readers into that suspense and allow them to do the thinking for themselves. You said it yourself. They're smart people. We're all smart. You can't exactly just give them bullet point notes of this is the screenplay or this is the novel. It has to be for them to figure out and enjoy. And I also love that you mentioned, the fact that, you immerse yourself in it, you watch it as a show, because that is something that is really cool. Whenever I'm reading back a chapter on my own, same thing. And the music is an amazing tip too. I really do like that. That's something that all of our listeners today should embody. Do you know, JF, that actually a lot of books these days are coming out with playlists for their book, like, read chapter 1 and listen to so-and-so song. That's a pretty cool thing. That's, you don't always think about immersing yourself in every element. So
yeah, absolutely. That's the one thing that I haven't done yet, just because time. But if I could just sit down, like I would be really excited to do that because I know the playlist, like it's in my brain.
so you've already listened to
like,
the playlist, just write it down, throw it in the back of
exactly.
the book, some QR codes maybe.
Yeah.
A great way to immerse the reader, something for them to be excited for also.
I agree. No, it's a
great the series. But yeah, no, speaking of all of this, diving into the book itself, we don't just have 4 horsemen. I think one of my favorite things that I saw when I was looking through everything is that we have a doggy on the set. Not just any dog. Mac is a pretty significant character in this story. So I'm wondering, what led you to add him in there? And because I think he's a great addition, of course, but any particular reason why?
Yeah, Mac is just as much a legendary guardian as the 4 horsemen are. He is loyal and brave, and he is always there. Usually when like words fail and they're just not enough, he's just always present. He actually embodies a lot of the light, right? Like a lot of the positivity, a lot of the comic relief, believe it or not, it comes from him. So he was very crucial to us, and he was crucial to the main character, Shade. He became someone that she can just trust implicitly, like when her whole world has shifted in an instant. He fills that space for her. And so I intentionally made it a dog and it fits well into the narrative, down to his name, down to his breed. Is intentional in this book, and you find out why as you read it. So that's where I actually got like the breed and the name. But to have it as just a dog, I just wanted a dog in my book. Like at the end of the day, I just wanted some type of animal companion. I feel like every great adventure needs an animal companion. Like I'm very pro get an animal in your book and, see where it takes you. It's not going to hurt you. So
yeah, no, there's definitely many benefits of it. One, the comic relief that you just mentioned, something to make people laugh, ease the tension a little bit, especially in a book like yours where it's high stakes. And also it helps the readers relate to the story a little bit more. Everybody likes animals, most people. So, by hearing about the German Shepherd, they might think about their own pet and so on and so forth, get more immersed in the story. So amazing tips right there. So yeah, I was wondering if you'd like to share a little bit about what it's like to write a series too. A lot of people listening today might be considering doing the same. It must be a lot of planning on your end. Is that right?
Yes. And again, it wasn't intentional planning on my end. at first. So when I first started to write it, I was just really excited to get like my thoughts on paper. That's what started this. So I'm just like, I have somewhat of a plot here, and that was about it. I was like, based on that one line I had mentioned. So I started writing, things started coming together, and the first book really kind of became the foundation, right? I almost call it like I want to say like an awakening. The first book represents an awakening. The characters come into their roles and begin to understand the larger stakes. And so emotional arcs, especially for my two main characters like Shade and Theo, they needed their closure. But the bigger conflict, I noticed, didn't start until book two. And so that's when I started to realize, like, this is going to go beyond one book. I'm not going to be able to squeeze it in. I refuse to write like an 800-page book. Kudos to the authors that do it. I am like immensely impressed with how they can do that. I am not that person. And so I was like, I'm going to split this up into a trilogy because I have enough meat and potatoes to do that. I see the pattern now. Book one was my learning process, was my trial by fire. Book two and three came very, very quickly after it. I think that book one, I just put everything into and learned as I went. Book two had a flow to it that because I got to like set little intentional things here and there and little Easter eggs and little patterns that I then addressed in like book three and later in book two. And so it just became a lot more fun for me to do book two and book three, a lot easier for me to put together because I learned so much with book one.
Yeah, it is always a learning process, isn't it? Everything that we do, regardless if it's writing or anything else in life, we're learning from it, from our mistakes and growing. So it's great to know that the first book taught you a ton, and now these other ones are coming a little bit easier. And I love that you're expanding and putting in some Easter eggs. That's a really fun way for the fans to kind of get excited about, okay, what's this mean? Where's this going to come back? I love a good Easter egg.
Yeah, me too.
So yeah, all of this considered, you did mention that you did have to go through a lot of revisions with this. So did you first work with an editor yourself? And also, how many rounds of revisions would you say estimated did it go through all together?
Okay, so this was fun because if you can get an editor, if you can afford an editor, get an editor, pay for the editor. If you are like me, you might not be able to get an editor at this point in time. And so what I did was and I encourage everybody to do this, even if it's as embarrassing as it was for me. Read your manuscript out loud multiple times. I must have turned 20 different shades of red reading my manuscript the first time I did it. It was beyond awkward, but it was so helpful because when you can't have someone else do it, and I've had people do, like I've had my some of my family members read through it, my niece read through it, and they're not editors, but I was just like, I need different perspectives. I need you to tell me if like things flow, if the pacing is clear. Can you see this? Does this sound right? And they were really great in helping me with that. But I had to go in and read it multiple times. The editing process is very difficult. You hire someone for the editing process for a reason. It is very difficult. It is very challenging. It's not the most fun until it starts to all come together. And so read your stuff out loud. That's what I did multiple times. And I think, fingers crossed, I got everything that I needed in terms of like, watch your punctuation, this dialogue didn't make sense, take it out, like remove this word, you didn't need it. And it really came together well, I think.
Yeah, I love that tip to read it out loud because sometimes in your head, you're subconsciously skipping over sentences. I know that I do that all the time, even when I'm reading for fun. I'm just skipping ahead, like, okay, this is a description scene, let me just move past it, right? But it's important to read it out loud, make sure it flows and makes sense. And I can see, you said your face was beet red because, I'm assuming because of all those punctuation errors. Is that correct?
Yes. Oh my gosh. And then like there are scenes in the book that, you read through it and you start to blush a little bit because you're like, but it was really just at the end of the day, a wonderful experience because honestly, I got to see all of those errors. And so I was able to easily just kind of like fix them. Nobody else saw them. We're good. We never have to talk about it again.
Well, you're saying that you were blushing. Were you reading it to somebody else or just embarrassed to read it out loud to
Just
yourself?
embarrassed to read it to myself out
Okay.
loud. Like I would hear me say it, and it was just, I
Mm,
just can't. I get real awkward real fast, and so
understood.
it was a very interesting dynamic between myself in like a room like this by myself reading something out loud like that.
Hey, well, it all worked out in the end because you were able to flawlessly come out with the book, and now it's, out there and people are loving it. Have you heard any particular reviews or feedback that resonate with you the most? And I know a lot of people sometimes hear something like this changed my life. I'm not sure if you've heard anything like that.
Yeah, no, I haven't gotten the change the life thing yet, which is completely fine. The reviews that I have gotten, I am so incredibly grateful for. I don't think that people realize just how important like reviews and rating are to a book. So every single review I get, regardless of what it says, is so incredibly important to me. And I'm very grateful. There is one that stands out to me the most, and it was just one line that they said about how the book showed that grief and love could share a spine. And if I could tattoo that somewhere on my body, I would, because I thought that was the most beautiful way of describing something within my book. And so that kind of stood with me for a little bit. Obviously it stood with me now. It just, yeah, that was like a standout review that I was like, oh, okay, that was intense, and I really appreciated it, and I really like it. But honestly, like I'm just grateful for them all.
I love that. And I always like to ask that, even though I was kind of putting you on the spot a little bit, because everybody listening, that's a lot of what we write for is for the audience. A lot of times we're writing for ourselves, but we're inspired by, and, maybe even just having it therapeutically get out onto the page. But, it's important to think about the readers and their thoughts too. So it's good to know that you have, a good amount of feedback in there. It helps you also to improve for future work too, if there is anything. So really good things to think about for sure.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I really thrive off of that stuff. I want to have those discussions with, readers, and I want to be able to kind of like respond to reviews if I can. Like, and I think that them taking the time out of their day to give you feedback on something that you wrote is a really beautiful thing. And any way that I could kind of like repay that by even like responding and engaging in dialogue, I would do that in a heartbeat. So it's very valuable to me.
I love that. Well, you did mention about, responding to it. Is there a certain way that people can get in touch with you if they want to learn more about it, check out the books themselves, stay up to date with their new releases? Where can we best find you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It is jfmonroebookshelf.com. That is where everything is updated, in real time. The second book synopsis is up there and it's going to drop soon. I'm on Instagram and TikTok as well. I am the worst when it comes to social media, just FYI, but I am pretty active on it. So I am at jf.monroe, very simple. And I'm on there, posting and filming videos and doing the best that I can in my own awkward but hopefully lovable way, marketing for this book. So
Perfect. Well, we're going to put all the links to that in the description box of the podcast today. So if you're listening and you would love to learn more, get in touch, ask questions, click on over and do that. And it's always good to form those connections, stay up to date, and, be more immersed in the world that JF here is building for us. I'm wondering, so you currently have the first book out. The second book we're still waiting on. Is that clear, right?
correct, yes.
Okay, awesome. So do we have a release date?
We do. So we're aiming for August. Right now, I'm in the middle of releasing the audiobook for the first book at the end of May, fingers crossed. It is in the approval process right now. And so once I get the audiobook out, I can focus. I'm in the editing process of the second book. Once I finish the editing process, I've got the cover down. I've got everything that I need to. It's just going to be about like uploading it, getting it ready for launch. I want to give it a little time to kind of like market for it before I release it. And so I think August, middle, end of August should be good.
Okay, well, perfect. Well, we'll set our calendars. Is there anything in particular that we can be like super excited for from this book? I don't want to, give any spoilers, but it's, the first book was super high stakes with supernatural conflicts and personal journeys. I'm sure there's more of that to come that we can be looking forward to. Is that right?
It is. It is. The book two, honestly, again, without giving anything away, like you
Yeah, no
said,
spoilers.
um, was was by far my favorite book of the trilogy to write, only because book one did its job with like setting that foundation. Book two, I had an absolute blast with like the heavy character development, who bonds with who, what happens here, where they're all in one central area. So they're not split up anymore. They are together. Like they get to thrive now as the group, and we get to see where they go and who they interact with on this journey. It was so much fun. It was so much fun to write. And like I said, with that book one setting the stage, I got to drop all of these wonderful, like little more Easter eggs that will then pan out in the third book. So book two's, I think, was the most exciting for me to write. So I'm excited to kind of share it with everybody.
Well, great. Then that makes everybody even more excited. So we'll set our calendars, we'll follow our links, we'll stay up to date and be ready for it because, hey, if the author's most excited for it, that means that it must be even better. And we're so excited for that. That all being said, I'm wondering if you have a copy of the book with you by any chance right now?
I do. I do have a copy of the book. So
There
that is,
Wow, I like that cover art. I did notice that when we were looking at Amazon, but seeing it kind of like up close in person is a lot different. Very cool. Can you tell us a little bit about the creation? You make it yourself?
no, I am not this talented. So I went on to, I'm not sure if you've heard of it, Fiverr.
I've heard of that, yeah.
And so it was awesome. I went on there and I found someone that did book covers. We had a conversation. I was like, this is kind of what I'm looking for. Are you able to do this? We had a little back and forth, and I've used him now for the second book. He's stuck. I told him, like, you're stuck with me now. So I got three books lined up. So you did the first one and you did it absolutely fantastic. It was everything that I wanted. And so now you're stuck with me for the second and third. And he was like, all right, let's do it. So it was awesome.
No, there you go. And to everybody listening, there's nothing wrong with reaching out to a freelancer for assistance with anything that you might need. Writing is not a singular task. You need a team with you, whether it be an editor, a beta reader, a cover artist. It's a great platform to do it through. Fiverr's one. Authors on Mission, we do a ton of stuff just like that too. If you need, for anybody listening today, angel writing, which we call ghost writing. We have editing services, formatting, a whole nine. So I always reach out for others. You can't do it on your own. You need support. So JF, that's a perfect example because look how beautiful that cover came out. It's wonderful. So yeah, that being said, do you have any other bits of advice for the listeners today about either the writing world or perhaps any words of wisdom for life in general?
Yeah, I mean, if you are thinking of, starting your novel or doing anything in general that brings you some joy, just do it. I mean, I, at one point in my life, thought that I didn't have time for a lot of stuff. I had a really high demanding job. I had just become a mom. Both are very, wonderful, but taxing in their own ways. And time can sometimes just be in these like dramatic spurts. It's not linear. And so, but I did it. I found time to do it. I used my nights. I'm not a night person, but I did it a couple of hours straight. I would just start typing away. I keep a notebook next to me at all times. So even during the workday where I can't do, I can't sit and write like I would want to, I'll jot something down. So I have a notebook full of things that honestly no longer make sense. But in the moment, they were very helpful to me because then at that night, I would sit down and say, okay, now I wrote down all of this stuff. Now let me put it on the page, get it down. And don't worry about try not to think ahead. Just think in the moment. If I can say that, because if you think ahead, then sometimes intrusive thoughts get in the way. Forget those for now. Think about this as like you're writing your first draft. And I forgot who said, I think his name was like Terry Pratchett. I'm really sorry if I messed up his name, but he said, the first draft is for you. You are writing the first draft because you are telling yourself the story. Nobody else has to know. So just write it, get it down, and then you can do the hard stuff of like the editing. And if you want to publish it, you can go through that, but just do it. Like, life is way too short to kind of just question yourself. Get it out there in the world. I did. And if I can do it, I am 100% sure everybody else can. So you can do it.
That is beautiful advice. You're right. And a lot of people do think they can just write their book in one go and that's going to be that. And it's all set, ready for publication. But you're right. I like that you phrased it that way. The first draft is for you. It's for you to get your ideas down and see, where the story is going to lead. And that's exactly what you did. And that's exactly what, led to the success of your book. So that's perfect. I really appreciate that. Well, thank you so much for joining us on our podcast today. I've really enjoyed chatting about the book, your characters, the process, and of course, what's new and exciting to come. So it's been an honor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Danielle, for having me. I really appreciate it. This was awesome.
Always, always. And to all of our listeners, if you're inspired by the conversation, remember that Legendary Guardians is available now with the next installment coming up soon. You can find JF Monroe on Instagram and TikTok and all those other links in the description box today. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to Authors on Mission and check out our other episodes. Leave us a review. Until next time, I'm Danielle Hutchinson, reminding you that every great story, including your own, begins with a single courageous choice. Keep writing, keep reading, and keep pursuing your mission.
This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.